Doug?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. That's unanimous. So, all right, now, are you through your,
I'm finished,
we
yes.
digressed. Are you through
I'm
with
finished, yes.
the report? So we will go to the minutes of April 11th.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from Monday, April 11th, 2016,
As written.
as written.
I second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none? Diane?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
I vote yes, that's unanimous. Insurance advisory. Bob?
Yes, we, as I mentioned earlier, we need to just make an adjustment there. The statute conflicts with the appointments that were established in 2012. So the statute requires 7 members, either appointed by or chosen by employee groups, and then 1 representative of the retirees. The retiree member is already participating. And we have, I think we have a full complement of representatives from the unions. But as you recall, you were going to appoint a member from the advisory board and a member from the Board of Selectmen. So those appointments should be rescinded.
Which appointments specifically should be rescinded?
Selectmen and advisory board.
Okay.
Because Roy wasn't actually made yet.
What? The advisory board wasn't actually made, but the select board appointment was.
So select board people cannot sit on
The way we have conducted the 2 meetings, anyone who wants to come and listen and even participate is entitled to do that. No one is, we don't do it by closing the door, but when it comes to voting, the members of the committee sit here, and they'll be the voting members. I'm not even a voting member. So
I haven't been able to come.
it
I attend.
doesn't
I
make any
don't
sense. It doesn't make any sense to me,
Just
by the
saying.
way.
I haven't. been able to. I
Because
sat in on one,
a
but we did
significant
nothing.
portion of the municipal workforce is not allowed to participate. But that's the way the statute reads.
All right, so the action we need is a motion to rescind Diane's appointment to the,
That's right.
all right? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to rescind an appointment of a Board of Selectmen, and what about the advisory board, that too?
That was never
And-
done.
Advisory board member hasn't been
That
appointed.
was never done?
I think, as I recall the meeting, I thought
Okay.
you had said,
I think I had just asked Will.
Yeah,
Right, we had just asked if you
ask
could
them
go
to
back.
appoint
Okay.
somebody, but,
Okay,
so.
well, that's my motion.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
Motion, Will, did you have a comment?
Yes, the advisory board, section 1 says that they should be represented on the insurance committee
Yes.
from the advisory
State law
board.
says otherwise.
Pardon me?
State law says otherwise, is what Bob was
Yeah.
saying.
Well, when you have a local law, so you have home rule.
No, no.
No.
No, state
No.
still takes
State
precedent.
statute trumps this. Does.
Because last year, I sat in for, in fact, I was the representative for the advisory board 3 years previous to this one here, on both the capital planning and the insurance. And that's,
Well, did you say that law was enacted in 2012?
No. In 2012, the selectmen appointed an insurance advisory committee, and included on that committee was a member of the select board and a member of the advisory board. And you are correct, in the bylaws, it does say that members of the advisory board will serve on the insurance advisory committee. However, that arrangement conflicts with the statute, and the statute takes precedence.
because our bylaw goes back to, it was changed in 2003 and 2011 to take it in, have
Yeah.
those folks.
I don't think it's really going to make a lot of difference. Members of the advisory committee are invited to attend and even, participate. It's just that 7 members plus a retiree are the ones who vote on recommendations.
Since we have the board vote on the minutes in 2012, should we just have the board vote to go by the statute or change the makeup? The makeup of the committee was actually voted at that meeting in 2012. Does that make sense?
I don't know, what would be the proper way to do that? I mean, currently, well, the sitting bylaw, I mean, that's next year's project. That will have to be changed, but we would have to really, amend what was voted? I mean,
No, this is just the Board of Selectmen voted in their meeting for the makeup of the committee.
okay, so we're rescinding.
We're rescinding appointments, but do we need to revote the makeup of the committee just because it was already
No,
voted?
because it's a state law that states what the makeup of
We'll
the
just
committee
see
is,
it,
so
okay.
I would think that
Okay.
we have to go by what state law says, so at the moment, I just
should
made it
ultimately
right.
just
We
eliminate
don't
our
really
bylaw.
need to
I think
have
the
a
question-
bylaw for
We should
that,
just
so.
eliminate the bylaw.
I think the question that we need to ask, Bob, is if we rescind Diane's appointment, does that put us in
Right.
Compliance.
compliance with the,
Yes.
with the law? So that's the only issue
That's
involved
the
here.
only thing that we have to do, since
Makes sense.
I'm kind of fuzzy about what happened with the advisory committee. Remember, we had 2 members here, and I think when we discussed it, I thought you conveyed to them that maybe they should come up with
We did, I did.
a person who can sit on the IAC, and I don't know that we established a process for that. But anyway, no member has been sworn in, so that's not a problem. The only problem is the sworn member here.
I guess we're gonna have to unswear you.
And we have a motion and second.
Well, I just made a motion
Yeah.
to rescind the Board of Selectmen appointment. I just happened to be it, but I have not been able to attend.
All right.
I mean, and not to be overly formal about all this, but it is important to comply with the statute because this is a very sensitive matter for all of our employees, and we have to do it right, or decisions that we make will be challenged successfully. So,
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Diane?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That's unanimous. You are hereby
Just so
now
I'm clear,
sworn.
any state statute trumps anything that we do in this community.
Basically.
yes, it does, except if you have a home rule charter. The home rule charter
Right, we haven't chosen.
Right,
to do that.
will
I understand that.
do what I think you would like to see done.
But-
It can supersede.
No, I'm just going by the bylaws, it's not
Right, right.
what I want to see done,
Oh, yeah.
it's just what I'm going by the bylaws.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, so we really have to, no matter what it is.
That's right.
We have to follow state statute.
That's right.
That takes precedence over anything, whether it's a bylaw
Yeah.
or whatever.
cities and towns are creatures of the state, brought into existence by the state, and they can be put out of existence by the state, and
Okay.
nothing can conflict with state statute.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. The way I heard it was, the state is sovereign.
Yes.
The municipality is a subdivision of the state.
Right, yeah.
And exists at the will of the state.
That's right. U.S. Constitution recognizes states and the federal government.
Yeah.
Doesn't recognize cities and towns. So,
All right, appointments. What have we got for appointments?
We just have the Pizza Pines license.
Make a
And,
note that I'm
Chief-
recusing myself.
Okay, well, and Chief Bennett asked that we just vote it, his a motion if you want to go by that, pending his final inspection. Their machines are rented and they don't come in until next week, and then once they do, the chief will go and check them. But he's in compliance, Peaceful Pines is in compliance with everything else.
Are we talking about appointments now, or are we talking about,
Peaceful Pines license.
okay, people, okay,
Yep.
all right. Peaceful Pines note that Diane has recused herself. And do we have any discussion about the Peaceful Pines license? Can anybody tell us? Give us, okay, right here. We're talking about 1 pool table, 2 electronic games, 1 pinball game. In the recreation room, okay. one room for store and 2 entrances and exits. This license will expire October 31st, 2016, and there is a permit fee of $35.
Per game.
I'm sorry?
$35 per game.
Per device, that's right. It's that small print down there.
It is.
It's always,
Always a
gets you
small-
every time. Okay, any questions, comments? If there's none, could we have a motion?
Yeah, make a motion to approve the 2016 auto amusement device license for Peaceful Pines Campground through October 31st, 2016, pending final inspection by the police chief.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Doug?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
I will vote yes. That's unanimous with Diane abstaining. Okay, we've done documents. Now, what about appointments? I'm sorry, did we miss something here?
We
We
rescinded.
don't need one now because we
Oh,
rescinded.
okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Okay.
that. Selectmen's office job descriptions. Bob?
I've received one written and extensive comment on the descriptions from Doug. And I haven't, I've heard some verbal comments, but I don't have anything else at this point from other members of the board with their views. I think there are a couple of issues, and one of them is to whom the two people in the office report. One structure was the HR resources person reports to the assistant administrator, who then appoints, and then the other one was the two report independently to the town administrator. That was one very significant issue. Also note that in the personnel policy that's proposed, there's frequent reference to an HR resources person. And, well, we haven't established that yet. We haven't established an HR resources person. Basically, we have, in our office now, we have two administrative assistants. And I know that there's ongoing discussion and controversy. I would just say that I'm not trying to invent something new. I'm just trying to have job descriptions that reflect what actually is going on and the way it works now. In terms of administrative assistant functions, there's very little. I mean, well, once in a while, but I would say 10% of what the two incumbents do would be administrative assistant, and the other 90% would be other activities. And that's, as I said last time, that's just because the technology has changed. The old days when an assistant would be called in, say, take some notes and do a letter, well, you don't do that anymore. I can type out a letter quicker than I can call somebody in, sit down and go through some notes and then have them do a letter and have me read the letter and so forth. So that kind of style is no longer applicable. We all use technology. It's much quicker, and it's changed the nature of the jobs in that office. And I think that's what I'm recommending that we do. I appreciate that there's sort of ongoing controversy about it. I do think it's in the interests of the town to have someone spending a good portion of their time on HR. We've been over this before, but it is an increasingly complex area. There are laws, there are rules, there are regulations, and if we don't, and they're constantly changing and evolving, And if you don't pay attention to that, you can get into big trouble. And it can cost the taxpayers money. And I think every community that I know of has had that experience, that something isn't done properly in employee relations, and you end up paying money. We have insurance for that, but ultimately, the insurance rates go up when we lose situations like that. So it is in the interest of the town to recognize that as a specialty and have someone who is trained and continually trained to provide that service to the town, and in particular to those who make decisions, advising them what they should or should not do under certain circumstances. And, well, I've made my views known also on the other side of that, that if you look at communities this size throughout the state, it's increasingly a team-oriented operation where your administrator devotes most of the time that they have to doing warrants, doing financial work, and working with the finance office, and unfortunately doing collective bargaining and employee discipline matters, and other issues that pop up, citizens who come into the office looking for services of a whole variety of kinds are often handled, initially at least, by another person in the office who's an assistant to the town manager, town administrator. That's the way this office functions now. And if it's everything from procurement, your town administrator is a chief procurement officer and plays a role there. But there's a lot of bureaucracy with procurement, a lot. And that function is shared by me, and I'm almost, a junior partner there. That, in this case, our assistant here does a lot of that kind of work of getting, when we do bidding of all kinds, whether it be a telephone bid or whether it's an advertised bid, preparing those bids, getting the paperwork done, posting that stuff on the website, on the central register, receiving the bids, making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and so forth, so that we don't get challenged when we award bids. Again, a very complex area where it's easy to make a mistake and be challenged. And so that's the way the office functions, and I still recommend that we proceed down that track.
Thoughts?
Diane?
All right, so I really would prefer not to have this discussion again because I think our next meeting will be as a different board possibly. So it will be, okay, I can only work in like today right now because I'm so overwhelmed, but I have had numerous conversations with Bob and I don't disagree. I've now worked on the personnel policy for 2 years, and I just really, it can't go on any longer. So the last year has been very dedicated to, except when I really couldn't. I think that stuff that this is about positions and not people. It is really hard to do that, and being here so much. Sorry, I have to turn that down. You get a feel for what happens. So the job descriptions that I had done were based on what they're doing. And I think that, when you kind of go back and you think about things, then you have to listen to the public comment, and because we're taped, it's a matter of, in most of the other jobs, we've advertised them and we've posted them. So I can honestly say that while we were working on the personnel policies, it came up that we really needed an HR person. We started working on that. We went into Bob. We didn't even talk about the other job descriptions. And it just kind of evolved. So in order to have the personnel policy, not in order to, today, if we want to approve the personnel policy and procedures, which are complete, and we don't want to approve job descriptions, I would make the recommendation that everywhere that it says HR coordinator, that we change that to town administrator, until that we can move forward with this. Or we take the job descriptions, maybe not quite as they are, Bob works with them, and just, you kind of leave it as HR coordinator. Alicia has currently been doing that job, and you post them, and you see what you get for jobs. At the moment, and we develop the next level of, whether it's ATA, senior admin, overseer of the, Board of Selectmen office. It's just other people are thinking that that's a larger job, and maybe they would like to apply. So that's really how I see that, but it's almost like two issues at the moment, and that I've worked over a year on the personnel policy, and to not have one at the moment is a larger risk than deciding what terms for a person or a job description to put in there. So I don't know if you want to take one thing at a time. I think that the personnel policy is complete. I think, Alicia, you sent out some recent stuff based on some recent changes and events with either laws or things. Everything that happens here is going to cause us to relook at our personnel policy and to say, oh, is that right? Oh, here's a new law. So, I think I had explained before, we've looked at them before. I can say they're more complete than they ever have been. For that yearly, the Board of Selectmen really do need to vote those in, and it's of my opinion that at least, one Board of Selectmen person should work closely with an HR person who's, I'm not fully knowledgeable in that, but it's been eye-opening. So we can either do the job descriptions as they were written, currently, or we say we're not gonna do that, and please can we vote the personnel policy? Because then we're gonna go a whole nother, it's just, we need to have that piece of it done. That's my
My
thing.
question, has the personnel policy been reviewed by town council?
Personnel policy is in the hands of town council. I do not have a response from them, although they've had it for a while.
A while.
Yeah, I know.
So,
You know,
at the moment, we have a policy, it's not perfect, and there's definitely some issues with it, because the entire 50-some-odd pages has been completely reworked. So I don't really know how, saying, okay, so I would like to approve the personnel policy, and we take out the term HR coordinator, and we insert town administrator until we can decide how the makeup of the Board of Selectmen office should truly be. We definitely need an HR person, there's no question about that,
Well, I kind of
position.
I kind of like the idea of saying town administrator, because then he can designate functions as he sees fit.
And this is something I think we should
Really?
have our eyes open about. In that personnel policy, it says that job descriptions are drafted by the town administrator. Now,
Oh, so that won't work either.
no,
That's a conflict.
I think there has to be another entity involved
Okay.
there, frankly.
Yep,
I mean,
that's a
I think the
conflict.
selectmen
Now that you say
either have
that.
to approve it, or I'm sure if you go back a few years, a lot of that was done at the town meeting. So I willing to do it. In fact, when we get past the annual town meeting, I think we've all agreed that during the warm months, that one of the bigger projects needs to be looking at job descriptions,
Yeah, you need a person for that.
classification and compensation and so
Yep.
forth. But I'll just tell you, I think there ought to be another entity, elected people, or maybe even the town meeting, although I think selectmen is probably the right.
We are the personnel board.
Right, you're
So,
the elected people
I-
to
but
make
we
those
cannot
decisions.
be involved in the day-to-day operations, so you're right I forgot about that, about the job descriptions, but at the moment, we know that, I believe that the meetings that we've had, we all agree that we need an HR person, HR coordinator, and that's a given. So if we were to approve the personnel policy, as written, it says HR coordinator with a job description, that's there, because those are all the things that would happen, and some of it is admin stuff, and we post the job. And we post the job.
Okay, Doug, you submitted some comments. on that.
I had told Bob that I agreed with Doug's
Okay, I
comments.
just want to give Doug a chance to weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, I do think right now, at this moment in time, the HR position needs more attention and needs to get resolved first. We need somebody in the HR function. It has become a very complex field, and we can't expect the town administrator to do his normal work and get trained to be an HR administrator. So I do think that needs to be the first order of business. And I also think because HR is truly a separate function than running the day-to-day office of the selectmen's, that there should not be a reporting link between the HR person and the selectman's office. It should be the HR person and the town administrator. That should only be the only line of
Or the Board of Selectmen.
reporting or supervision ought to be between the HR person and the town administrator. The job descriptions that were in our packet at the last meeting still showed the HR person having some reporting or direction or oversight by the ATA position, which is what I'm objecting to. The HR person needs to be its own department, not department necessarily, but needs to be its own entity with the town administrator, in my opinion.
All right. We've heard from this side of the table. Do you have anything you want to add to this?
It's a tough one, being new to it, but I have to agree with Doug on that there shouldn't be a go-between with the HR person and the town administrator. I mean, I just,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think I'm in agreement with you simply because we're talking about two people here, essentially, working in the office. And I don't think there's a need to have a level between the town administrator and the HR person. I mean, it's simple enough that he can sit down with her once a week and decide what it is that needs to be done that week, and she'll have a plan of action as what she needs to do.
Position.
Yeah, I mean, I think
That's hard to
posting the
not talk about
positions is the
people.
right thing to do also.
yeah,
I mean, we're actually,
posting that
the
particular
job
position should
descriptions are
get
really
posted.
changing what the job is. So
We've not had
posting it,
one
I think,
before.
I think
That's-
posting it is the right thing to do.
We've not had, we've not had one.
What are the legalities involved in posting a position when someone's already in it? How does that work?
I don't know.
The person's not in it because the job doesn't exist.
Well,
Job doesn't
it really
exist,
doesn't
yeah.
exist, unfortunately, and I will make the disclaimer also that in creating this position, and we really should not be talking about people, it was always with the intention that that person that I was working with may write herself right out of a job. So it was very clear on my end, in working in all this, I mean, that position did a lot of work in not just, they created forms, it works well. But again, we don't have that position right now, so I think those are just things I've heard from other people, and that we should post that job, and.
How does that work if it's posted and someone else were to get it and there's a person in a position, do you just lay that person off because we don't have the money for the budget?
I don't know.
Is that legal? I don't understand that.
Well, this gets fairly awkward, but the reality is, that's the way it would work. A revision of a job description which results in a significant upgrade to the position is similar to a new position, and the old position essentially is being abolished. So I think that's the case. There is another issue, I think, with personnel policy, and that is to what extent does the town provide job security? The standard in this town has always been that those who are not unionized employees are employees at will. And yet, I notice in the personnel policy, it also says that a person be terminated for cause. So I think we need to work that out too. Because those are two different ways of terminating an employee. Again, I mean, it's an awkward situation in the position we're discussing right now, or both positions, but Doug has said, and others have said, that we need to advertise for all of our positions. We do that consistently now, and that's the way it'll be.
I think that, I did not notice the termination for cause, but we could approve the personnel policy, I'm not gonna talk about job description today. We could approve it tomorrow, and in comes a new law, or the attorney will find something. So I think that we approve it as written right now, but knowing that there are definitely laws change, that might change. It's always been, to my knowledge, any policy we went backwards to look at was at will, and I don't know how many, unless you're union, to have it, but whatever the case may be, it's a working document. It's a working document, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's,
But again,
Because it
right
changes
now,
all the
it's,
time,
yeah,
as Bob said.
there may be some issues like that, but just trying to figure out what's,
I think that if we would take a vote to approve it pending council review,
Yep.
that way it'll just be that much more easier and convenient to make changes.
Okay. And, okay, so as it's written, it has HR coordinator in there. You leaving that? Do you vote, is that something that, how do
Okay,
you all
well, I
feel
mean,
about
we have
that
to-
part? Because that's already in there.
That's in there.
It's in
Um,
there.
But there's no job, in other words,
It's in there, but there's no
there are
job
other
description, so
instances
we're kind
where
of like in this.
there's a reference to a position which hasn't
that
been
doesn't
filled.
exist, yeah.
But if we,
Yeah.
but
We
if
have
we
to do
know that
both
we're going
today.
to eventually, in a relatively short period of time, create that position,
Mm.
why go to the effort of, reworking the whole
Oh, yeah, I agree.
policy and
I'm not saying
procedure?
take it out.
I would just leave that text for
Right,
now,
sure.
with the understanding that that position is going to be created at some point in time.
Why don't we,
I mean, there was a personnel, wasn't there in the bylaw, a personnel
Oh, yeah.
director,
Yeah.
which may have existed for a couple of years, but didn't exist for a long time.
I want to give folks a chance. Anybody, Will, you
Yes,
want to chime in
and
here?
just, in the private sector, I actually ran into this, writing a new job description for a position, and it was totally changed. So it happens in the private sector. The opportunity there is for that individual, if they, depending on the job, they're given the opportunity to still apply for that position. That doesn't mean they're going to get the position. They may not even have the qualifications, but that's typically what has happened when I've ran into this in the private sector, because I actually had some jobs written when I was in management that actually did that. And unfortunately, most people had to go out and either find something within the company, or they were let go. My main question is, and I think that the administrator kind of laid a little bit of this, is the process seems to be that more the selectmen are looking to take and end up writing these job descriptions and agreeing on them, and then setting salaries. In the past, that process was different, because it actually went to town meeting where the job was brought up with the salaries, because of the fact that if you put on new folks with higher salaries, the town folks see that as an increase in how much they're going to have to, no matter, I'm talking positions, not
Right.
people,
Oh,
it's
right.
the positions.
Yeah, I agree.
If
We
any
had talked
positions
about
that you
that too.
change that are elevate those positions mean an impact on the amount in the budget and what they could be taxed. So in the past, it has gone before the annual town meeting. I mean, that's the process that has been used. Is that the process that you're going to use, or I'm trying to understand where you're
I'll
at?
speak to that. We haven't had to do that, Will, because we've downsized. So this is definitely a position that's evolved, and I don't think that, I mean, you and I have talked about that. Does it need to go to town meeting? I can't imagine, I mean, we're gonna look at the budget and you see all these raises, and of course that's gonna raise a red flag. But in this case, I mean, maybe we did the treasurer collector and we combined that and I don't know, I mean, that's part of day-to-day operations, but yet, again, I don't know if it needs to go to town meeting and that we are going through, in this, to me personally, now, we
Because we
don't,
did-
we are the personnel board, but I would like to see like, usually what happens is people get hired, and then Bob talks to them, and then we certify, but for these positions, I believe that the Board of Selectmen should be talking to
Well,
them too.
you already have a precedence here, because you've gone, and the town voted on going to a treasurer collector. And they voted on a town administrator going from town coordinator. So, I mean, those precedents have already started, are been put in place, so I'm just saying, be careful on how you end up approaching this.
I think it's how the town administrator job description is worded, and I think that's why, I don't have that on me at the moment.
That was before there was a town administrator that all of us went to town meeting.
Yeah.
The difference.
Right, so now that it went, but the town administrator job was approved, and I think it talks in there about those things so that we don't have to
I bring these things up so
necessarily.
that you're
I
at least
think we
aware
looked at all
that you can
that.
end up discussing them, maybe a little bit more in depth, because those have an impact. These all have impacts, and we've already set some precedents on changing from a treasurer to a treasurer collector and increasing the salary. And folks saw that. It was an
Those are
article
significant
that folks
increases.
voted on, and they saw the need to do that. So, I mean, this kind of almost sounds like the same, so, I mean, it's up to you.
I agree that the job description should not be unilaterally changed by the department heads and the town administrator. I think there has to be approval by either the select board or the town meeting, and we need to thrash through that, I guess.
Well, I think that having them come to the board is appropriate, but I think the key, though, is that they should be initiated by, or go through you, the
Yes.
town administrator, to bring
Initiative.
to us
Yep.
with recommendations.
Right.
Which
I agree.
we've done.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. Actually, I think in many instances, the initiative comes from a department head who will walk in and say, you know, I'm trying to hire somebody, but the job here, this job description doesn't describe what the person does. And can we do something about that? So. But, you know, I'm saying it should come through your administrator who should take the initiative and bring it to at least the Board of Selectmen, because there are implications, often implications for the budget.
Well,
And-
let me just go back and say, in reference to what Will said, if we're talking about a new position and a new job, yeah, we go to town meeting. If you're just looking to update
Mhm.
an existing job description because the duties and the technology or whatever's involved,
Right.
I think you bring it here for our approval. I don't think, unless there's a significant salary change, I don't think it's necessary to.
Well, it depends on the salary, because I mean, right within the old personnel policy, there was a salary matrix that was followed. I don't necessarily agree with that matrix, because we couldn't follow it because the steps from one step to the other was more than 2.5%. And if we had given everybody those steps, we wouldn't have a budget. I mean, from advisory, it didn't make sense. That's why we chose to end up recommending going to a treasurer collector and assistant treasurer collector with those salaries, and let the voters go on that. And, you know, because we looked at other towns, and it made sense, because we weren't getting the necessary people that we needed at the level, at the pay that we were doing. And I think the town realized that. I think the same thing in this position. The town, if you bring it to the town and they see what the position is, and it makes a salary change, and if it makes sense, it should be no-brainer, hopefully. But you never, I don't guarantee anything.
So
Never predict what town meeting is going to be.
Exactly right. I can't.
Do you feel this, okay, so, all right, so what do you want to do? You know, if we, the job description, I don't know if there needs to be a few changes in the, at least the HR coordinator one, so we make it subject to posting and subject to, how do we do subject to town approval? It's not on the, warrant, so we can't approve a personnel policy with that in there with another year out or another 6 months
Right.
out for that job. Yet, you need someone watching that. I mean, it's definitely, but it's not a big, is it big salary change? I don't know what to say about that, so,
That's an entirely separate question. and
okay, so right
We
now,
operate-
it's
we
the
operate within
job that's
budget
being done,
constraints.
but yes, it's a newer job. Right, it's admin stuff, it's HR stuff, but there's no salary. We're not changing to a full-time job, it's part-time. Wait, nope, a little bit
I'm
more
not
hours,
questioning
but
any
not.
of that, I'm just.
Yeah, but well, you bring up a good point, so now it's like, okay, so where are we at then?
Well, but the one that was in last week's packet
That one
isn't,
is-
I mean, this
You
is the
have
one
it?
I pulled out of last week's packet.
Let me see.
It's this one. And that's the HR one.
Just, Mr. Chairman, did you
Well,
want
this
to
says
comment?
HR
And going
assistant.
through this in the private sector, even though it was jobs that within
That's
my realm
not the
of
one.
managing,
Yeah.
an outside
That's the one
that was
company
in our
came in
packet.
to
It's
do the
not the
job
one that you wrote.
descriptions. The reason for that is because of salaries. If you don't, if you don't slot them correctly for whatever job you write, you end up penalizing the person coming in, or in this particular case, you're penalizing the
one you
community
wrote.
because it's probably too
Wow,
high.
this is
It's either,
What
it's gotta
date
be
is this, March 28th?
appropriate.
Well, yeah, and I think that the problem that we have here in terms of doing comparisons is that all towns don't have the same salary structure, they don't have the same job descriptions, so sometimes it's hard to find comparables.
Right.
I'm not disagreeing with that, I'm just
It's not
saying
the
that
one
that's,
that I wrote, and I
It is
did
not.
it based on not a,
Right, this is the one you wrote here.
To vote.
the
The only one.
coordinator, right?
Right, and the only thing I would do is I would take out that one word.
This
I think
came
what
from
you wrote is
another, this is some we worked off of. In conjunction, so some of that. Yeah, because we've had two different, I thought this was the one
Yeah,
that
I
we
mean-
got. In the personnel policy, Alicia, could you, I did not bring it with me, does it say HR coordinator or you have?
Coordinator.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
it
Says
says
coordinator.
HR
Okay, because
coordinator.
this job description says HR assistant, and it has a different,
Right. That's
I-
why I would not
that-
vote for the one that was in our packet last time.
okay, okay.
So then how do you propose to,
This is, I don't know how to do this then, I
Yeah,
really,
we-
this is the
because
one
we
that,
don't
this is
really
the one that
have-
we worked on that I submitted to you, and then at the same time, something else was, submitted, but these, both job descriptions were based on what was being done in the office at the moment. So really, critically, if we want to, approve a personnel policy and procedure, that's what's in there is HR, coordinator, and, again, I don't know what to say.
What happened was that you worked on the policies and procedures manual
With this.
months ago and
yeah.
used the term coordinator. And then when the job descriptions came up, the word assistant was used.
Yeah, it's fine, just the ones that I had done are not these ones, I don't know where they came from, so, some of it might be.
Yeah, those, what
I
it
did
looks to
not
me
do
like is
these.
we had Bob's original ones, we had your original ones.
And then something
These
else.
are some combined version of that.
Yeah,
But these,
That's what I
I
saw.
don't,
yeah, but they're not,
I don't
okay.
agree with these that were in the
Okay,
packet.
so, which means we have to waylay it then. So we have to decide which set of job descriptions we're actually going to look at. So I thought in my last packet, it was HR coordinator, and I had said that those are the ones that actually are based on what's happening for both jobs, I believe.
Okay, I have an idea. If everyone will
Can we-
communicate, as Doug did, just say, I agree with Doug, or I don't agree with Doug, or communicate about the main issues here. The name.
Okay, I'm
and
gonna send
the
out.
reporting structure. I will redraft the descriptions and bring them in for May 9th.
Okay.
And as well as
So we can't
I
really.
will needle the town council to give us any revisions of the personnel policies manual, policies and procedures manual, and we'll be back here again. And
Now, for the sake of clarity here, the only issues with the job descriptions are the title and the reporting structure. Are
Well,
we-
no, for me, it was, it wasn't just that, it was, that's the wrong one, sorry. There's a draft out there of stuff from other towns. We don't even do some of that stuff. So I took from like 4 different towns and combined them into what we do. These are the job descriptions that I did. Those other ones I don't, whether you did them or, they're just not all based on what's done currently within that office, is what I'm saying. How about if I go over that with Bob?
I didn't do
The
that.
ones I
no.
sent out at the last meeting were yours and the ones that Bob and I had worked on combined with the edits that I heard what you guys were saying at that previous meeting. And I gave them to Bob to check over, and he made some changes, so they were kind of edited.
Okay, so we have 2 different sets of job descriptions out there that, period. So it's really deciding where you're at and what job descriptions we're doing too then. So I can't answer that question, because I didn't write the other ones, so those are never the ones I was going off of.
Okay. I'm just trying to develop some
I get
clarity.
it. So we're
going
gonna have to,
forward
we're
here.
gonna have to wait until May 9th,
Yeah.
honestly, to make some edits and then to figure out where the town council is with personnel
Well,
policy, and then we'll have to do it then.
I would feel much more
That's fine.
comfortable
Yeah.
having the town council chime in here
Yeah.
before we do anything.
Amen. So we put it on next meeting?
All right, so
Correct.
we're all in agreement, we're gonna put this off until May 9th.
Did I take some of your stuff over here?
Okay,
This
Bud's already been here. Do we have action on the annual town meeting warrant?
These-
We-
Okay, can I go through it with you again?
No,
Sure.
yeah, that's-
We have our consent agenda where we do reports of town committees, reports of town officers, revolving funds. You saw that last time. OPEB, we're asking the town meeting to accept Section 20 of Chapter 32B of the general laws that will establish an other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, and to develop a funding schedule, which we're on our way to doing, and get the approval of PARAC. And lastly, if you recall, last fall, we asked that 64,000 and change be set aside in the selectmen's budget so that, for the annual town meeting, so that if the town meeting adopts a special act or the legislative enabling legislation, we will transfer the 65,000 into the fund. That'll be our first contribution. So, since you saw this last, I've added, I was gonna have the transfer in the financial transfers article, but I'm gonna put it here. Kelly and I talked about it. It's legitimate to put it right there in this article for OPEB. So And of course, we have 60,000 in the new budget for OPEB, so we're making a start on that. Financial transfers, I just got that list today. There's nothing particularly surprising, all small amounts. We don't have any budget problems at this point, so, in the fiscal year. Operating budget, funding for the ambulance department, that's boilerplate. Third year of the ambulance lease, that's been there for, this is the third year. Funding for the assessor's triennial recertification. We're going to leave that on there, but I think next year we need to approach that in a different way. There is some difficulty in establishing a fund like this and having the funds carry forward year to year. The Department of Revenue doesn't particularly like that, so they've made some suggestions for another way to do it. You get to the same result, but not this particular way. Direct deposit, this would accept enabling legislation that would allow the town to implement direct deposit of employees' checks. That's actually been happening, but in order to do it legally, you have to accept enabling legislation, and for those who are interested, we are required to get the approval of individual employees before we implement it. We cannot implement direct deposit if an employee does not agree to it. We are, I think Kate said that we're at like 82% direct deposit now. And so if the town meeting approves this, the next job, I think, for me, is to make sure that our contracts include a direct deposit clause, and then to approach the non-bargaining employees who may be holding out to point out that this is unnecessarily costly for us to be issuing the paper documents and so forth, and that we need to, everybody needs to be involved with the direct deposit plan. Then we have the acquisition of property for the sewer pumping station, the replacement of the Pleasant Street pump station, the sewer department budget, these are all standard articles. The senior exemption, cost of living adjustment, standard. Community Preservation Committee funding. I did get a recommendation from town council saying that the separate article that we had for CPC funding of $50,000 for the restoration of Scout Hall was not necessary, and that we can put it into the motion for this one article. So we've eliminated that article, and the $50,000 will be part of the motion. Transfer to the stabilization fund, I don't have any indication that we have money to do that right now. One of the things you'll see on the financial transfers is a transfer of $27,000 into the Selectmen's budget. It's not allocated at this point. It's an amount that we have available, and it's going to be consolidated and put into your budget in case there are any emergencies between now and the end of the year. But that's money. I suppose we can't transfer it to stabilization in May because it's just a little too soon to do that. But that would be the kind of funds that we would want to put over there. And then we have some new ones. The bylaw amendment, election of town officers. This is a proposal to reverse the election and the town meeting. We have the election first, followed by the town meeting. If you look at Article 15 and Article 16, it would reverse that and have the town meeting first, followed by election. Those came in today, and I added them today.
Sorry.
Yes, from Diane. Also, appointment of town meeting checkers. This would give the town clerk the power to appoint. And also, it sets up a section of the auditorium for non-registered individuals who are going to be attending the town meeting. Right now, we sort of do that, but we really don't. Not everyone sits in the same section.
There's no balcony.
There's no balcony. We're also taking, right now, the bylaw says the balcony.
Balcony.
They can sit in the balcony, but there ain't no balcony. So it takes that language out of there too. So it just brings this up to date.
Let's build a balcony.
You build a balcony, yes.
Can I just explain though for the public, why my project for next year is the entire book of bylaws? And I know y'all are gonna hate me, but that's what I wanna do. But when I came into office, and I think that Julie definitely expressed the same thing, we're sitting down in a chair to a budget that we had nothing to do with, and we don't, you're sitting in the chair, and then the next week you're like, oh, sure, I'll see it. So I would like to see that the people who've been elected finish out their term and go to annual town meeting, and then there's an election of officers, and then you're starting again. So, and I know that the Commonwealth has done it this way for 400 years, but it just, to me, it didn't make sense. I feel like, do you abstain, or do you, I mean, you had really nothing to do with that budget. You didn't come, if you didn't come to meetings, I know many people are involved, thank God I was, but it was really overwhelming. So that's the reason for me doing that. And then as I looked through the bylaws, just in the first couple of pages, I was like, oh, that's not right. Oh, God, that's not right. So I just thought I would take an opportunity to do a few of them that all kind of go together, which means that if you change how you do elections, you have to change how you put out the annual report, and then the checker part, none of it made sense. So I just wanted to make sure I explained where I was coming
You
from.
can explain 18 a little further, the records and
So
reports.
the records and reports, right now, we haven't necessarily been making enough of them, so I would like to see that change a little bit. However, from, way back when to now, we have a website. So I wanted to add that we put it on the official town website, and then if we do change elections, because we put them at the polling places, well, how it was worded was the first Monday, we'll have to have it available, it has to be, so I had to change the wording just for that, just to match when we might do elections. I mean, each bylaw has to be changed, and if it's not changed, then the records and reports have to be changed too, back to, again, making sure we put it on the website, and people who are internet savvy don't necessarily need a big, huge hard copy, because, 500 copies was a cost of, somebody throw out a number, $1,600,
Yeah.
which, I think that it's for the taxpayer, and they deserve that, to have that. So, but if they know they can go to the website, then maybe we could save a little bit of money. Or we have to print more, and that's that. So that's where that came from.
Other communities do exactly what you said. They put it on the website, but they also have a few copies, because there are some people,
Oh, I agree with you
in
wholeheartedly.
today's
Yep.
society, there's still people
So
that
this
don't
year,
have.
last year we printed 4, and this year I asked if we could print 5, because many people complained that they couldn't have one, and I like to read a book. I don't want to read things electronically, so I totally understand that, and we're here for the residents and the taxpayers, so that's where I was at with that. So I just wanted to explain that.
That's Article 18, and then we have citizen petitions. We have one which would provide for a fluoride warning. We have one that would provide for a special act to the legislature regarding the use of fluoride. We have one that would review the contracts, that would require review of contracts by town council, any contract with a value of $100,000 or more. We have another citizen's petition that projects $1 million or higher should be voted only at town meeting. And we have the last citizen petition regarding advisory committee appointments. It would provide that the moderator shall fill any vacancies that may occur on the advisory committee, and a posting of 14 days And also, any members absent for 5 consecutive meetings, that person, the position shall be deemed vacant, and the moderator will make another appointment. That's it. We have provided for the posting on May 4th, yes, May 4th. So if you'd like to add or subtract, and probably be most convenient if you could execute it tonight and sign it, so that way we wouldn't be.
What is your pleasure? Could we have a motion to approve the warrant as presented?
Second.
Any other